Open the suitcase, ma'am. We have reason to believe you are smuggling something, Officer Mark Dalton said, loud enough for half the baggage claim area at Harborview International Airport to turn and stare. Lena Brooks stood beside Carousel 6 with one hand wrapped around the handle of her black hard-shell suitcase, the other holding the strap of her leather carry-on. The suitcase had just rolled out between a golf bag and a bright pink family duffel, ordinary under the white airport lights until Dalton pointed at it like it had confessed to something. Travelers slowed around her. Wheels clicked against polished tile. A child holding a stuffed dinosaur looked up from behind his mother's coat. Somewhere overhead, a boarding announcement dissolved into static and soft music. Lena did not raise her voice. She did not pull the suitcase closer. She only looked at Dalton, then at the younger officer beside him, then at the body camera centered on Dalton's chest. "What specific reason?" she asked. Dalton's expression barely moved, but his eyes sharpened because calm questions always annoyed men who preferred fear. He was in his mid-40s, white, square-jawed, airport police uniform pressed hard enough to look permanent, badge shining under fluorescent light. Behind him stood Officer Caleb Morris, younger, thinner, with a nervous hand resting near his radio and the unsure face of someone following a senior officer into a moment that already felt wrong. "Risk indicators," Dalton said. "Unusual travel pattern. Unusual luggage. We need to inspect it." Lena glanced down at the suitcase. Inside were two folded suits, a Navy captain's uniform still in its garment sleeve, a sealed envelope from the city, a framed photograph of her father, and a small velvet box containing the pin he had given her the day she left Atlanta. Nothing hidden. Nothing illegal. Nothing she owed this crowd as a spectacle. "If there is a lawful inspection," she said, "I am requesting a private screening room and a TSA supervisor present." A few people nearby exchanged looks. Someone lifted a phone, not high enough to seem bold, but high enough to record. Dalton noticed and stepped half a pace closer, trying to make his authority fill the space between them. "People with nothing to hide usually cooperate." Lena's fingers stayed relaxed on the suitcase handle. "People with authority should know the difference between cooperation and humiliation." The words landed quietly, but the people closest to her heard them. Morris looked at Dalton, then down at the suitcase tag. Lena Brooks. Atlanta to Harborview. He seemed to register the name, then lose it beneath the pressure of Dalton's silence. Dalton gave a thin smile. "Ma'am, I am not going to debate airport security with you." "I am not debating," Lena said. "I am asking you to put the reason for this detention on record." The carousel kept moving behind her, bags circling as if the world had no idea a woman's dignity was being measured against a man's suspicion. Lena could feel the eyes on her skin, the familiar weight of strangers deciding whether she looked guilty, difficult, or simply too calm for the accusation being placed on her. Less than 30 minutes away, Harborview Police Headquarters was preparing a room for her swearing-in. Deputy Chief Elaine Porter would be checking the time. A nameplate would be sitting on an empty desk. But here, under airport lights, Lena was not a captain yet. Not to them. She was a black woman with a black suitcase, and Dalton had already decided the suitcase made the story. He reached for the handle. Lena did not let go. "Private room," she said, voice steady. "Supervisor present. Body cameras on. And your badge number, Officer Dalton." For the first time, his confidence flickered. Lena Brooks had spent most of her life learning how to walk into places that were not built with her in mind and still leave her name on the record. At 38, she carried herself with the quiet discipline of someone who had been underestimated so often that surprise no longer interested her. She had grown up on the south side of Atlanta in a small brick duplex where the air conditioner rattled through July, and her father kept court documents in a shoebox because he believed paper could protect people when memory failed. He was not a lawyer. He was a courthouse maintenance supervisor who worked nights polishing floors outside rooms where other people argued about justice. But every morning, before Lena left for school, he told her the same thing. "Learn the rules better than the people who misuse them." Lena had listened. She joined the police academy at 24, then moved into federal investigations after proving she could follow evidence through places Pride refused to enter. Money laundering, public corruption, organized theft rings moving through ports and airports, she had worked them all with clean reports and steady hands. Her colleagues called her precise. Her supervisors called her difficult, when precision made them uncomfortable. Lena accepted both. The appointment in Harborview was supposed to be a turning point, not just for her, but for a department that had spent years talking about reform without putting anyone new at the head of it. Deputy Chief Elaine Porter had called her personally after the final vote. "Captain Brooks," she had said, and the title had sounded strange through the phone, like a door opening in a house Lena had only seen from the outside. That morning in Atlanta, Lena had packed carefully. 2 suits. 1 pair of polished black shoes. Her captain's uniform in a garment sleeve. The appointment letter in a sealed envelope. A framed photograph of her father standing in his old courthouse uniform, smiling like he had known this day was coming long before she did. Her younger sister Maya had leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching Lena close the suitcase. "You sure you do not want me flying with you?" Maya asked. Lena smiled. "I can manage 1 airport." Maya did not smile back. "That is not what I asked." Lena understood. Black women learned to hear the words beneath the words. Maya was asking whether Harborview would see her sister before it saw her skin. Lena had no answer honest enough to comfort her. She only zipped the suitcase and said, "I will call when I land." Now, under the fluorescent lights of Harborview International Airport, with travelers staring and Dalton's hand hovering near the handle of the same suitcase, Lena thought of that promise. Her phone buzzed once inside her blazer pocket. Probably Maya. Probably a message asking if she had made it safely. Lena did not reach for it. Safety, she knew, was not always about locked doors or clear skies. Sometimes it was about whether the person with authority in front of you could tell the difference between evidence and imagination. Officer Morris shifted beside Dalton, eyes moving from Lena's boarding pass to her luggage tag, then to the crowd gathering in a loose half circle. He looked young enough to still believe procedures existed to protect everyone equally. Dalton looked like a man who believed procedure was something he could bend until it matched his suspicion. Lena stood between them, one hand on the suitcase, back straight, breathing even. The black case was not contraband. It was her life folded neatly into hard plastic and steel latches. And before she allowed anyone to open it, she wanted the record to show exactly why they thought they had the right. Officer Mark Dalton had spent 17 years inside Harborview International Airport learning how to make suspicion sound like expertise. He knew the rhythm of the terminals, the nervous shuffle of delayed passengers, the hollow roll of suitcase wheels over tile, the tired voices of parents trying to keep children calm near baggage claim. He also knew which words made people step aside for him. Risk indicator. Traveler profile. Secondary inspection. Most passengers did not understand what those words required or where their limits ended, and Dalton preferred it that way. Confusion made authority easier. He was respected by some officers because he moved quickly, spoke firmly, and acted as if hesitation were weakness. He had trained himself to see the airport as a map of threats, but over the years the map had changed shape in his mind. A white businessman sweating through his collar was stressed. A college student with 3 overstuffed bags was careless. A black woman traveling alone with a hard-shell suitcase and a steady voice was suspicious. Dalton never said it that plainly. He did not have to. He called it instinct. He called it experience. He called it knowing when something did not feel right. Officer Caleb Morris had heard him say those words many times during morning briefings, usually while pointing at old incident reports and telling younger officers not to be fooled by clean paperwork or confident answers. Morris had believed him at first because Dalton wore certainty like a uniform over the uniform. But standing near Carousel 6, watching Lena Brooks ask for procedure instead of pleading for permission, Morris felt something inside that certainty begin to loosen. Lena did not look nervous. She looked controlled. She did not refuse inspection. She requested the right setting for it. She did not insult them. She asked for names, badge numbers, body cameras, and a reason on record. Those were not the habits of someone improvising. Those were the habits of someone who understood the line between lawful authority and public humiliation. Dalton saw Morris watching and hardened his voice. "We are not moving this to a private room until I decide it is necessary." Lena's eyes stayed on him. "You have already accused me publicly. If you intend to inspect personal property, I am asking that it be done according to policy. Policy allows us to act on suspicious indicators," Dalton said. "Then state the indicators clearly." A rolling suitcase bumped against the carousel behind her and kept going. The crowd had grown quieter. A TSA supervisor in a navy jacket, Grace Miller, approached from the security corridor with a tablet in one hand and concern in her face. "Officer Dalton," she said carefully, "if this is an inspection request, we can move to room B and log it properly." Dalton did not look pleased to see her. "I have it handled." Grace looked at Lena, then at the suitcase, then at Morris. "Handled is not the same as documented." The sentence was gentle, but Morris heard the warning inside it. So did Lena. Dalton's jaw tightened. For the first time, he was no longer the only authority in the circle. That bothered him more than the suitcase ever had. He turned back to Lena and spoke low enough that only those closest could hear. "You are making this harder than it needs to be." Lena released the suitcase handle, but only after sliding it toward the center of the open space where every camera could see it. "No," she said. "I am making it clear." Grace Miller guided them away from Carousel 6 with the kind of calm that comes from knowing a public scene can become a permanent record in seconds. The crowd parted slowly, not because anyone understood the procedure, but because people could feel the pressure around Lena Brooks like a storm held behind glass. Dalton walked on one side of the suitcase, Morris on the other, while Lena followed with her leather carry-on against her shoulder, and her phone still buzzing unseen in her blazer pocket. She did not look back at the travelers filming from a distance. She did not need the crowd to save her. She needed the record to survive what the crowd could only witness. Room B sat behind a frosted glass door near the security corridor, small, windowless, and cold from airport air conditioning. A steel inspection table stood in the center beneath a strip of white light. There were 2 chairs, a wall clock, a camera in the corner, and a laminated policy sheet taped beside the door. Grace tapped her badge against the access panel and held the door open. "This room records audio and video," she said, looking at Dalton first, then Lena. "I will log the inspection time." Lena nodded. "Thank you." Dalton set the suitcase on the table harder than necessary, though not enough to damage it. "Unlock it." Lena placed her carry-on on the chair and stood across from him. "Before I do, I want the detention reason stated for the recording." Morris glanced at the camera in the corner. Grace looked down at her tablet, waiting. Dalton's mouth tightened. "Suspicion of transporting prohibited materials. Based on what specific observation?" Lena asked. "Unusual luggage and behavior." Lena looked at the black suitcase, then back at him. "The luggage came from the same carousel as everyone else's. My behavior was asking for procedure." Morris lowered his eyes briefly, and Lena caught it. The young officer was beginning to understand that silence could become participation if it lasted too long. Dalton's face hardened. "Open the case." Lena entered the code, lifted the latches, and raised the lid. The suitcase opened with a soft mechanical click. Inside, everything was arranged with careful order: folded shirts, a navy garment sleeve, polished black shoes in cloth bags, a sealed city envelope, a framed photograph wrapped in a gray sweater, and a small velvet box tucked into the corner. Dalton's eyes moved quickly, searching for the story he had promised himself. "What is in the garment bag?" he asked. Lena's hand rested lightly on the edge of the suitcase. "Clothing." "Open it." Grace looked up. "Officer Dalton, please allow her to handle personal items unless there is a safety concern." Dalton gave Grace a sharp glance, but Lena had already reached for the zipper. She opened the garment sleeve slowly. The navy uniform appeared beneath the plastic, pressed clean, captain's bars wrapped separately in tissue, the fabric still carrying the faint smell of dry cleaning. Morris leaned forward slightly, then stopped. Something about the uniform made his expression shift, but he had not yet connected all the pieces. Dalton did not pause long enough to see what mattered. He moved to the envelope. "And this?" "Appointment documents," Lena said. "For what?" The room became very still. Lena looked at the envelope, then at Dalton. She could have answered. She could have said the title and watched the walls close in around him. Instead, she let the question sit there in the cold air. "You asked to inspect the suitcase," she said. "Not to interpret my life." Dalton stared at her. Morris looked from the uniform to the luggage tag, then to Lena's face. Grace's tablet stopped moving beneath her finger. The white light above them hummed softly. Outside the room, airport announcements rolled faintly through the walls. Ordinary flights leaving for ordinary places. Inside, a man kept searching for contraband and kept finding evidence of a woman he had refused to recognize. Dalton kept his attention on the suitcase because looking at Lena too long made the inspection feel less like procedure and more like what it was becoming. The uniform lay inside the garment sleeve, navy fabric pressed so sharply that even the folds seemed disciplined. The captain's bars remained wrapped in tissue near the collar. The sealed city envelope sat beside the photograph, untouched, its official letterhead visible beneath Lena's careful packing. Grace Miller saw enough to understand the inspection had crossed from caution into something harder to defend, but Dalton reached for the velvet box before anyone could speak. Lena's hand moved first, not fast, not aggressive, just firm enough to stop the moment from becoming another public taking. "That is personal," she said. Dalton looked at her hand, then at her face. "Everything in this suitcase is subject to inspection." "Inspection is not a performance," Lena replied. "If you have a specific safety concern, state it." Morris shifted near the door, the radio on his shoulder quiet for now, his eyes fixed on the tissue-wrapped bars. He had seen captain insignia before. He had carried boxes into promotion ceremonies, stood near podiums, watched command staff pin metal onto uniforms while cameras flashed. His mind was moving now, slowly at first, then faster, trying to connect the uniform, the city envelope, the appointment documents, the name on the suitcase, and the woman who had asked for procedure from the first second. Dalton did not give him time. "You are not in charge here," he said to Lena. The room tightened. Lena looked at the camera in the corner, then back at Dalton. "No," she said. "But the record is." Grace's tablet made a soft sound as she entered another note. Dalton heard it and turned. "What are you writing?" Grace did not flinch. "That the traveler requested a private inspection, that the suitcase contained clothing and official documents, and that no prohibited item has been identified at this time. This is an active airport police matter," Dalton said. "And this is an airport inspection room," Grace answered, still calm. "Documentation protects everyone." Morris swallowed. The word everyone seemed to reach him. He had been trained to believe documentation protected officers. He was only now beginning to understand that it was also supposed to protect citizens from officers who got too comfortable inside their own certainty. Dalton closed the suitcase lid halfway, not enough to finish, only enough to control what could be seen. "We are not done." Lena's phone buzzed again inside her blazer. Once. Twice. The sound was small, but in the cold room it felt like a clock. She thought of Maya waiting for the call that was supposed to come after landing. She thought of Deputy Chief Porter standing at Harborview headquarters, probably near a podium, glancing toward the entrance every few minutes. She thought of her father's photograph wrapped in the gray sweater, his courthouse uniform pressed clean even on days no judge knew his name. Learn the rules better than the people who misuse them. Lena breathed in slowly. The room smelled like metal, floor cleaner, and airport air conditioning. "Officer Dalton," she said, "am I free to leave?" Dalton's answer came too quickly. "No." Grace looked up. Morris did too. Lena's voice stayed even. Then state the legal basis for continued detention now that the inspection has revealed no prohibited item. Dalton's mouth opened, then closed. For 1 second, the room showed him exactly where he stood. No contraband, no clear indicator, no lawful reason strong enough to say cleanly into a recording. Only pride, dressed as suspicion. He looked at Morris. Run her again. Morris hesitated. Her identification is valid. Run her again. The young officer reached for his radio, but his eyes remained on Lena. He was no longer looking at a suspect. He was looking at a mistake that still had time to stop becoming worse. The inspection room felt colder after Dalton said it. Run her again. The words did not add evidence, only distance, as if repeating a clean result enough times might eventually make it dirty. Morris stood near the wall with Lena's identification in one hand and his radio in the other, caught between the senior officer's command and the facts already sitting open beneath the white light. Grace Miller remained by the tablet, her face professional but no longer neutral. The suitcase rested half open on the steel table, its contents visible in careful layers. The navy uniform, the wrapped captain's bars, the sealed envelope, the photograph of Lena's father tucked safely in gray wool. Outside the frosted glass door, airport life continued in muffled waves. Rolling luggage. Boarding calls. A child laughing somewhere near the food court. Ordinary movement pressing against a room where time had narrowed to breath, paper, and pride. Lena sat in the metal chair because Dalton had told her to wait, but she did not sit like someone defeated. Her back stayed straight. Her hands rested open on her knees. Her blazer had not wrinkled. Her voice had not risen. She looked at the uniform inside the suitcase and felt the strange ache of almost revealing the truth. One sentence would end the room. One title would change Dalton's posture, Morris's face, Grace's notes, the air itself. But she held it back a little longer, not from weakness, and not from performance. She wanted the record to show the whole shape of what had happened before authority arrived to rescue what dignity should have protected from the beginning. Her father's old words returned with the softness of memory and the weight of a ruling. Authority is not who you are when they respect you. It is who you remain when they do not. Lena had learned that in courthouses where her father cleaned floors after midnight, while judges' names shone on brass plates. She had learned it in interview rooms where suspects expected her to be an assistant until she began asking questions no one else had prepared. She had learned it in federal offices where promotion panels praised diversity after doubting every choice that made it real. Respect, she knew, often arrived late. Character had to arrive before it. Dalton paced once near the table, glancing at the uniform but refusing to understand it. People with legitimate business usually answer simple questions, he said. Lena turned from the suitcase to him. People conducting legitimate stops usually ask lawful ones. Grace's pen paused above the tablet. Morris looked down at the identification again. Lena Brooks. Valid. Clear. Nothing. He keyed his radio, but his voice came out quieter than before. Airport 3 requesting confirmation on Lena Brooks, Atlanta arrival, identification already checked clear. Static answered first. Then dispatch asked him to repeat the name. Morris did. The silence that followed was short, but it changed the room. Dalton stopped pacing. Lena closed her fingers gently over the edge of the chair, not tense, just ready. Grace looked up from the log. The airport announcement outside faded behind the hum of the overhead light. For one suspended second, everything waited: the suitcase, the uniform, the wrapped insignia, the man who had built a suspicion and the woman who had refused to become smaller inside it. Dispatch came back through Morris's radio with a different tone than before, sharper now, stripped of routine. Airport 3, confirm you are with Lena Brooks. Deputy Chief Porter is asking if Captain Brooks has arrived from Atlanta. Swearing-in begins in 15 minutes. Morris did not move at first. The radio stayed in his hand, but his fingers seemed to forget how to close around it. His eyes dropped to the identification card, then to the luggage tag, then to the navy uniform inside the open suitcase. Lena Brooks. Captain Brooks. The name did not change. Only the room did. Grace Miller's pen stopped above the tablet. Dalton turned slowly, his expression still trying to hold authority, but confusion had already broken through the surface. "Repeat that," he said, though no one had asked him. Morris swallowed. "Dispatch, are you referring to Captain Lena Brooks with Harborview Police Department?" Static crackled once. "Affirmative. Newly appointed police captain. Deputy Chief Porter is requesting immediate status." The inspection room became impossibly quiet. Even the hum of the overhead lights seemed to draw back. Dalton looked at the uniform again, really looked this time, at the captain's bars wrapped in tissue, the city envelope, the garment sleeve, the careful order of a woman traveling to step into command. His face changed in pieces. First irritation. Then disbelief. Then the pale, hollow look of a man realizing the story he had forced onto someone else had just turned and named him. Morris straightened automatically. "Captain Brooks," he said, voice low. "Ma'am." Lena rose from the metal chair. She did not rush. She did not smile. She picked up the sealed city envelope from the suitcase, opened it, and laid the appointment letter on the steel table where the camera could see it. Her name, title, and reporting time sat in official black print beneath the Harborview city seal. Dalton stared at it as though the ink might rearrange itself if he looked long enough. Lena turned to him. "I am Captain Lena Brooks," she said. "Your new police captain." The sentence did not echo, but it seemed to fill every corner of the room. Grace lowered her tablet slightly, eyes moving between Dalton and Lena with the grave stillness of someone watching an inspection become evidence. Morris's face reddened. "Captain, I am sorry," he said. Lena looked at him. "For what?" The question caught him off guard. He blinked. "For not speaking sooner." That answer mattered. Lena held his gaze for a moment, then nodded once, not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition that he had finally found the correct failure. Dalton cleared his throat. "Captain, this was a standard airport security response." Lena looked back at him, calm enough to make the words around her sound smaller. "No, Officer Dalton. A standard response has a basis, a record, and limits. You made an accusation in public, resisted a private inspection, continued detention after no prohibited item was found, and tried to make suspicion do the work of evidence." Dalton's mouth opened, but the camera above them, Grace's log, Morris's radio, and the open suitcase left him no safe place to stand. Lena folded the appointment letter once and placed it back inside the envelope. "Preserve the body camera footage, the inspection room recording, the baggage claim surveillance, the detention log, and the inspection notes. Both of you will report to headquarters after this is cleared. Deputy Chief Porter and Internal Affairs will be present." Morris answered immediately. "Yes, Captain." Dalton hesitated. Lena's eyes settled on him, not angry, not loud, only exact. That was not optional. His jaw tightened, then lowered. "Yes, Captain." Lena closed the suitcase with a soft click, the sound cleaner than any apology the room had offered. She lifted the handle, took her carry-on, and walked toward the door. Grace stepped aside. Morris did too. Dalton remained near the steel table, badge shining under the cold light, suddenly looking less like authority than a man being measured by the record he had created himself. Lena reached Harborview Police Headquarters 11 minutes after leaving the airport, late enough for the room to feel the absence before she entered. The community briefing room had been arranged with a careful formality that now seemed almost fragile. Rows of chairs facing a small podium, the city seal on the wall, a folded American flag near the corner, and a polished captain's badge waiting inside a velvet presentation box. Deputy Chief Elaine Porter stood at the front speaking quietly with the city manager when the double doors opened. Conversation thinned across the room as Lena walked in with the black hardshell suitcase rolling behind her. She wore the same dark blazer, the same white shirt, the same controlled expression she had worn under airport lights, but something in the way she crossed the floor made several officers straighten before anyone announced her. Porter saw the suitcase first, then Lena's face, and her own expression shifted from concern to understanding. She did not ask what happened in front of everyone. That restraint told Lena she had chosen the right ally. The ceremony moved forward because institutions often need ritual before they can face rupture. Porter spoke about leadership, public trust, and the kind of authority that begins with restraint. Lena stood still while the badge was pinned, feeling the cool weight settle against her uniform shirt after she changed in a side office. Cameras clicked. Hands came forward. Applause rose. She accepted it all with grace, but not with forgetfulness. The suitcase sat near the wall through the entire ceremony, black, silent, no longer luggage in her mind but evidence of the distance between who she was and what some people had decided to see. When Dalton and Morris arrived from the airport, the ceremony had already ended. Morris entered first, face pale with embarrassment, shoulders squared like someone ready to be corrected. Dalton followed with his uniform neat, his jaw tight, his pride trying to stand where his judgment had failed. Lena did not confront them in the hallway. She let silence do the first work. 20 minutes later, in a conference room with Deputy Chief Porter, Internal Affairs Lieutenant Rachel Kim, Grace Miller on a video call from the airport, Morris, and Dalton seated across the table, Lena placed the sealed airport detention paperwork beside her badge. The contrast was not accidental. "This is not about one delayed ceremony," she said. "This is about what becomes normal when suspicion is allowed to operate without discipline." Lieutenant Kim opened a folder. "All footage has been preservation requested: body cameras, baggage claim surveillance, inspection room recording, and airport detention logs." Grace's voice came through the speaker, calm and clear. "The TSA inspection log reflects no prohibited items found and no specific safety threat identified during the inspection." Morris looked down. Dalton shifted in his chair. "Captain, I acted on risk indicators." Lena turned to him. "Then name them without using my race, my confidence, my luggage, or your discomfort." The room held still. Dalton's mouth tightened, but no answer came that could stand upright. Porter folded her hands. "Officer Dalton will be placed on administrative leave pending preliminary review." Dalton looked toward her sharply. "Deputy Chief, with respect, that is excessive." Lena's voice did not change. "What is excessive is turning a traveler into a suspect, finding nothing, and still searching for a justification." Morris raised his eyes. "Captain, I should have challenged the detention earlier." Lena looked at him, not soft, not cruel. "Yes, you should have. Silence becomes policy when good officers let it." He nodded once, accepting the weight instead of dodging it. That mattered. Lena closed the airport file and slid it toward Lieutenant Kim. "Review Dalton's prior airport stops marked suspicious traveler, smuggling concern, or risk-based detention. I want patterns, outcomes, and body camera compliance. If this was isolated, the record will show that. If it was not, the record will show that too." Outside the conference room, radios murmured, phones rang, and officers moved through the building as if the department had not just shifted beneath their feet. Lena stood, badge bright against her chest, suitcase beside her chair. "We are not here to protect appearances," she said. "We are here to protect people. Start there, or the badge becomes costume." No one spoke after that. Not because they had nothing to say, but because the truth had finally taken up space at the table. The next morning, Harborview woke under a pale gold sky, with planes lifting out of the airport and slow silver arcs beyond the police headquarters windows. Lena Brooks arrived before most of the command staff, dressed in her full captain's uniform, the badge resting against her chest with a weight that felt less like honor and more like obligation. The building was quiet at that hour, only the low murmur of dispatch, the distant ring of a phone, and the soft click of her suitcase wheels crossing polished tile. No one stopped her this time. No one asked what was inside. No one looked at the black hardshell case as if it needed to apologize for existing. She rolled it into her new office and set it beside the desk, close enough to remain visible, not hidden in a corner like something embarrassing. The room was modest, with one wide window facing the eastern runways, a bookshelf still empty, a city map pinned to the wall, and 3 folders Deputy Chief Porter had left in a neat stack: Airport Policing Review, Detention Procedures, Complaint History. Lena stood there for a moment, listening to the building breathe around her. Then she opened the suitcase. The uniform sleeve was empty now, hanging neatly over the back of a chair. The framed photograph of her father went onto the desk first. In it, he stood in his courthouse maintenance uniform, smiling beneath fluorescent lights very much like the ones in the inspection room. Lena touched the edge of the frame with 2 fingers. "You were right," she whispered, not loudly enough for anyone outside the office to hear. "Learn the rules better than the people who misuse them." The velvet box came next, placed beside the photograph, then the sealed envelope, then the folded blazer she had worn at baggage claim. Each item looked different in the morning light, no longer evidence to be searched, but pieces of a journey that had refused to be reduced to suspicion. Through the glass wall, she saw Officer Morris pause near the hallway with a folder in hand. He waited until she looked up, then knocked once. "Captain," he said, stepping inside. "The supplemental statement is ready. I included the moment I should have asked for the basis of detention." Lena took the folder and read the first page in silence. Morris did not shift or defend himself. That mattered. "Good," she said. "Do not make honesty something you only discover after the radio gives you permission." His face tightened with the truth of it. "No, Captain." Across the bullpen, Dalton's desk sat empty, his chair pushed in, his airport unit jacket gone from the hook. No dramatic scene. No shouting. Just absence, clean and official, while the review began. Lena looked at the empty desk, then back at the files in her hand. Punishment alone would not be enough. An officer could leave and a habit could remain. A badge could change hands and a culture could keep breathing underneath the walls. She sat down, opened the Airport Policing Review folder, and began with the first detention report. Outside the window, a plane rose from the runway, wheels folding into its body as it climbed into the brightening sky. The sound reached her office as a low, steady thunder, then faded. Lena picked up a pen. The suitcase stood beside her desk, black, quiet, and unashamed. Yesterday, someone had tried to make it a symbol of guilt. Today, it stood as proof that truth could travel through suspicion and still arrive whole. Lena turned the first page. In the hallway beyond her door, radios crackled, officers moved, and the department began another day under a captain who understood exactly what power could do when it forgot the people standing in front of it.